Lentz, and I have 4 children. Joseph is my oldest and first child, and he died when he was 2.5. If he were alive today, he would be turning 13 this March on March 13th. But he died of brain cancer 10 years ago. 10 years ago, at the beginning of March in 2009, we were getting ready to have Joseph's birthday party. It was a Sunday, and it was dry, and I was excited because that meant that the party could partially be outside. And we were having it early because I was due to have his little brother, Thomas, the following week. But the night before, Joseph had stopped drinking, and we were getting concerned because no matter what we tried, he just would not drink anything. So that Sunday, instead of having his birthday party, we took him to the ER at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. 2 days later, after a few tests, we learned that Joseph had an inoperable brain tumor. And the very next week, Joseph's little brother, Thomas, was born. Life did a 180 that spring of 2009. My husband and I were caring for a newborn and a child undergoing weekly chemotherapy. We had no cancer in our lives before that. Our lives were very typical, they were very regular, they were just like everybody else's until they weren't. I will never forget that feeling that in just one moment, that one moment of a diagnosis, that everything changed. And we went from a family preparing for our second baby to come into this world to fighting for the life of our oldest child. Despite hopeful doctors and the recommended course of chemotherapy, Joseph continued to go downhill that spring. After 3 months of chemotherapy that wasn't working, he spent 1 month on hospice at our home where he died. Just 4 months after his cancer diagnosis, and when his little baby brother was 4 months old, he died at our home. So, what happens to a family after their child dies? 10 years ago, I had no idea what the answer was to that question. Well-meaning people told me about depression and my health would decline, suicide. They told me the high percentage of marriages that would not survive after your child dies. And it felt like this first tragedy was just the first in line for so many others that we had suddenly become eligible for. I had only been married a couple of years and my life was already leveled. So I spent a lot of time at home. I went out only if I absolutely had to. It was me and Thomas, who was a baby. I isolated myself as much as I possibly could, and I made it really easy for other people to isolate me. My house that had been filled with funny conversation and the chatter of a toddler was quiet. There was no more conversation, there were no more tantrums, there was no more noise, just me and a baby. And the silence was so loud, it was heartbreaking. My husband threw himself into work. It was a dark and lonely time. And then one day, about 18 months after Joseph died, I learned about this place in Maine called Camp Sunshine. They had a bereavement retreat. It sounded weird. But everything in life had become so weird. So I thought, why not? If we go up and it's super weird, we'll just leave and drive home. And my husband and I agreed to go. So in November of 2010, a year and a half after we had lost my son Joseph, we went to our first bereavement camp at Camp Sunshine. Wow. The experience was absolutely transformative. Finally, in one room, there were 40 families who had also lost children to an illness. Before Joseph died, I distantly knew of 2 families that I had heard who had lost a child. But now there were 40 families in the same room. We all took turns going around the room and telling stories about our struggles, and talking about our children. So what did that mean for me? What did that look like for me, and what did that mean for my husband? All of these families from different backgrounds and different races and different religions and different ideologies, what was so powerful and life-changing? These people sitting in one room represented survival. They represented life. They were all breathing, even with a hole in their heart. Some had had more kids after their child died. Kahelani. Their living children were amazing and thriving. Jaden. And these families spoke of their deceased children while crying, laughing, smiling, and cursing all in the same sentence. Patty and Judo. These families were making it work. They were making it work. It wasn't easy, but through blood, sweat, and tears, they were climbing, scratching their way back to the surface with all the strength that they had left. And when I saw that firsthand, I saw that if those families could find a way to survive, even with a broken heart, that meant that I could too, that we could too. There's power in numbers, and losing a child is a lonely place. When our grandparents or our great-grandparents were young, many families lost a child or children, but now it's really rare. Longing for your child to be alive is a long, lonely, endless road. But Camp Sunshine has nailed the path to survival better than anybody could. Bringing us all together to meet and connect and learn from each other and teach each other and share different survival strategies and be guided by someone as insightful and compassionate as Nancy Sincata, who sits up here in the front row tonight, is the reason I know that literally hundreds of families have found a way to embrace life, even without their child. As a family, we have gone on to have 2 more kids. My baby, Thomas, at the time is now 10. Brian is 8, and Daisy is 5. We have a dog. We look like a normal family, but deep down, we always know that that is not the case. I am eternally grateful to Nancy and Anna and Larry Gold for having the insight to generously give this world Camp Sunshine, and for connecting us with families like Patty and Joe and the Floods, who I know who are here, to walk through this life with them. Those connections, they're special and they're unique, and they're absolutely what gets me through. With an eternal thank you to Camp Sunshine, let us also raise our glasses to Sienna, who, if we're here, would obviously be super cool and super strong, just like her parents. Sienna.
Yeah.
Thank you.